There was absolutely no empirical evidence to uphold that these standards were what they were claiming to be. And that really shakes you to your core, especially when you consider that these are supposed to be national standards. There was absolutely no empirical evidence given even at the state level. And what it does is it raises red flags. And I'm surprised to see entities like the PTA and the Georgia School Board Association, as well as some teacher groups, supporting the standards when there's absolutely no proof given, no proof available, no studies to show that these standards are going to do what they claim. It's very, very mind-blowing that they would move forward with something that will have this kind of impact with nothing to prove that it's going to work.
They were spread very thinly over the high school years, and they left a huge glop in the elementary grades. Those children are the ones who need foundation more than anything. These standards do not provide the foundations that kids need.
Common Core does not correlate with any research. Now, if you talk to a Common Core proponent, they will tell you that it is rigorously research-based when there isn't any evidence of that. How do we know that? Because children are being told that they have abilities that they don't have at a normal developmental level.
So I started researching and I found that what they're pushing down on our younger kids are complex, abstract thinking. They can't think abstractly until they're 12 years old. So my fourth grader, she could bang her head against that wall 10 times trying to understand solving for n. Her brain is not ready to do that. It's child abuse. Yes, I just said it. It's child abuse. If you're trying to to force someone to think abstractly, you're setting them up for failure. They can't do it. They will never be able to do it because their brains aren't ready. And that's like me asking when my youngest was three months old, okay, stand up and walk for me now. Let's see you walk. It's time for you to walk. That's crazy. Anyone would tell you I'm crazy. My 3-month-old is never going to walk at 3 months. But that's what we're asking a fourth grader to do when we ask her to solve for n and x and p and y. You're violating a child's human development and the natural development of their brains. You are no longer respecting them as a person.
Young children do not have a fully functioning frontal cortex. This is where you do much of your reasoning. But when you're told that you have an ability you truly don't have developmentally, you're more likely to feel anxious, question who you are or your ability. I'm Joe Stapp. I am a psychotherapist in Dawsonville, Georgia. I've been practicing in psychology for approximately 20 years. My experience is primarily working with clients who show very difficult behaviors, such as defiance, or eating disorders, or cutting, things that other therapists typically don't treat. And as a result of this, I've been able to witness the effects of Common Core on a child's well-being.
And it'll be too late by the time these children that are 4 and 5 years old right now, by the time they get to that point where they're in high school, middle school, and we start seeing a rise in serious psychological issues, it's too late. It's too late. We talk about trying to address our children academically. Who's talking about addressing them as human beings psychologically?
I have a master's in Spanish language, and I taught for 3 years as an adjunct professor at Tufts University, Brandeis University in Massachusetts, and I also taught at Penn State.
The Common Core standards were reverse designed. What does that mean? Reverse designed means that David Coleman and the other developers made a list of what they felt children should know when they graduated high school. It's important to remember that the majority of people on this development committee, the writers, were businessmen. So the skills that they felt children needed when they graduated high school were business oriented. They took those standards, or they took that list and then spread them backwards.
Some of the goals of Common Core were to further educate your child so that they're better able to compete in the world. And when I read that, I was thinking, who would not want that to be a part of their child's education? However, the more I looked into it, the more I realized that it was not at all what it meant it was proposed to be. I'm starting to see a rise in childhood depression. Anxiety is significant as well. And I think Common Core is one of the major reasons why this is occurring.
Seeing also in my daughter that she cannot work autonomously anymore on math. She can't in that workbook, but then she goes to another workbook that has the standard math and she works autonomously in that. No tears, she's done, moves on to the next subject. I check it and everything's fine. This other workbook is a nightmare, and we found out 7 other girls in the 4th grade classes are also struggling up until midnight. Some families are up until midnight for a 4th grader.
Children do most of their reasoning from the emotional side of their brain. This is why teenagers and children tend to become very angry when they're posed with a problem. The front part of their brain is not working very well. When you're in a classroom and you're given a problem to solve, and you're not able to reason through it and develop an answer, you tend to feel more angry, more anxious. And as a result, these children are more likely to feel a sense of failure. Most children are very scared of feeling stupid. And I'm hearing that more and more. I'm dumb, when it's clear the child is not. You have children who are bullied an increasing amount of time. And the problem I can see is that when you're told over and over again that you're supposed to have an ability to develop an answer, but yet you're not able to because you're not at a developmentally appropriate age to do that, then you're more likely to feel that you're stupid. What are one of the techniques that bullies do? To leave a child feeling worthless, stupid, ugly. When you have teachers that are indirectly delivering that message, then you have children who are more likely to feel highly anxious, very depressed, come home and tell their parents how stupid they are. And unfortunately, since the parents do not have access to the materials, they're not able to refute that. They're not able to sit down with their child and show how they could come up with a different answer.
She would come home and she'd sit there crying every night saying, I have another test tomorrow. We have another test. They're throwing this at us and we have to spit it out the next day and take this test. All 3 classes failed a math test. All the kids were held in over recess to go over and review this math test because they did not have any other time to review the math test because they had to keep going forward and pressure, keep going, no turning back, no review.
I first noticed her asking questions that I couldn't answer. Mommy, how do you do this? And I looked in her math workbook and I couldn't give her the answer that she would understand. We were seeing things like front-end estimation and pre-algebraic expressions that I could explain to her but did not make sense to her.
Children are experiencing a great deal of anxiety these days. Children are being taught that what they thought was the right answer is in fact wrong because they don't know the answer that Common Core says is correct. So they feel more anxiety. They're being taught that the way to succeed is to be able to pass a test rather than learning how to think. Anxiety increases cortisol. The fight or flight reflex is stimulated by high levels of cortisol. When you experience anxiety that cannot be resolved, you're exposed to higher and higher levels of cortisol. Cortisol is in effect an acid. And when you're experienced at increasingly high levels of cortisol or high levels of acid, you're more likely to do damage to your blood vessels.
Last year, I would be able to do my homework. I mean, I would ask questions, but they wouldn't be like something that my mom and dad couldn't understand. But this year's homework, I would have to ask my mom and dad. They wouldn't understand it.
They tested me for special ed. They wanted me to be in special ed classes because I didn't pass the test, and they sent a letter home. And they were telling my mom that I needed to attend special ed classes. When I was already in gifted classes, the year before, they tested me for gifted, I got in, and I was just in gifted. And then they want to put me in special ed classes. And I was so upset. I felt dumb, I felt stupid, and I felt so insecure, it was unreal. Every night I cried before I went to bed. It's just thoughts were going through my head because I had no time to think in the day because I was so busy with testing. I had no time to think. At night, it just all came on me, and I was so sad. I bit my fingernails all the way down.
The math is making me feel like terrible, kind of like I'm dumb, but I'm not dumb.
So you have a child who's sick as a result of experiencing significant stress, coming back and experiencing significant stress once again. So it develops a cycle where a child is having unhealthy levels of chemicals in their body, making them more and more sick, leaving them feeling inferior to others, and therefore having a lot of difficulty feeling worthwhile, being able to succeed academically, and therefore being able to realize and exercise their gifts and talents.
I talk to professionals that have been teaching math their whole lives, and they all say the same thing. Math hasn't changed. And I liken it to the new Coke. You have large corporations, and in this instance, it's going to be education. You have large corporations or the DOE, and they're trying to find new ways to show their stakeholders that they're making a difference, that they're improving their product. So what do? They come up with something, they repackage it, and they call it something different, the new Coke. And then your constituents or your community or people, your consumers, your customers, start partaking of this. And it doesn't work. They don't like it, doesn't taste good, doesn't feel good. They don't like anything about it. And then the companies say, gee, you know what? New Coke isn't working. So we need to go back to the old, original, the real thing, because that's what works. And I think that's what's happened with Common Core. They're just trying to repackage and trying to sell this to parents and to school boards and to school districts across the country as something new and improved and repackaged, and it stinks. It stinks. It is not better.
Common Core is brilliant marketing. Design standards that children can't do, sell them to government policymakers as the answer to a fake crisis in education, fill stores with aisle after aisle of help for parents and teachers, continue the failure cycle by testing students on what they don't know, assign a random passing score, fill the pockets of testing companies. After all, there's much more money in failure than in success. Then blame it on the teachers. Close the failing schools and turn them into for-profit charter schools. Hire cheap, fake teachers like those from Teach for America. Teachers who won't question and who don't have the background or pedagogy to see what's happening. I mean, who wouldn't want their children taught by someone with only 5 weeks of preparation?
She started shutting down, and she didn't even want to open that book anymore, and was spending, we go to bed typically around 8:30. She was up until 10 o'clock at night, which has never happened in our house. We don't allow them to stay up when they start their homework at 5 o'clock. They don't stay up till after 10 doing homework in the 4th grade. that was our clue that something was not right. And she started saying, I'm stupid, I just can't get math this year, I can't understand it, it's me. And I said, this is not you, you can do this, you can do math, it's something else is going on.
Local control, I believe, is going to be replaced by state control of the curriculum. That's already happening. Federal control is going to be the next result of this. So you have children who may need to learn in a particular way in order to be successful, not being reached. If you have somebody from Washington telling you what you should be teaching and how you should be teaching, and they've never met this child, that child is going to be lost. I'm somebody who sees those lost children, the children that are suffering from depression, anxiety, they're cutting, they have suicidal issues. And parents, of which I'm one, are powerless to do anything about this. I go to meetings and I see the parents that are offering questions and being told that what they think is accurate is inaccurate. This information is toxic to our children, to our teachers, and it also damages the relationship between the school, the children, and the parents.
As a mom, as an elected official, a school board representative of my post, I started asking parents, what are you seeing? Are you seeing anything in the classroom? What is coming your way that is starting to send up red flags for you? And they weren't hearing or seeing anything. And then things started to roll in. You started seeing parents from other parts of the country posting things online. And I have to say, thank goodness for things like Facebook, because you really get to have those conversations that you wouldn't have, that we wouldn't have been able to have in 2008 or 2006 when No Child Left Behind was in full swing. So you're having more real in-depth conversations with parents across the country, and they're starting to post their children's homework and their children's assignments, and they are stunned at how none of this makes sense.
I do have some parent-teacher friends that would basically say, I would never admit this in front of anybody, but Common Core is an absolute nightmare.
We're having more and more teachers that are talking to different board members, and I'll speak for me, that approach me in public. I've been approached in the bathroom at Walmart, and they just want to convey the fact that they feel that there might be retaliation if they're vocal about their objection to the standards.
When teachers are challenging the Common Core beliefs, they're told that they need to be silent and they need to accept that this is the way that things are going to go, and any sort of dissent is not acceptable. There's a teacher I'm working with right now that suffers from depression, and to keep her job, she is told that she needs to be able to be positive about Common Core, even being given talking points, so that when parents come in and they have questions about Common Core and whether it's right for their child, the teachers are being told to embrace this. And if they don't embrace it, then their job could be at risk.
So, and I know a lot of teachers are in fear of losing their jobs because of speaking out against Common Core.
I understand they're all working within this tiny little cage. It feels like a cage, and they're doing what they can. They're doing the best that they can, but they're afraid. They're afraid to speak out. They're afraid to verbalize their concern. We are having teachers that are talking about leaving and specifically naming Common Core as the reason.
Teachers are experiencing a great deal of anxiety. When you're a teacher, you go to school, you learn how to teach. You learn what are some of the best practices in order to be able to help a child succeed. If somebody had a heart condition, I can tell myself that I know how to treat that, but I don't. With Common Core, there are businessmen and those in government that are telling teachers how to teach when they don't have that education. So you have teachers who are feeling very anxious because they know that they're having to go against the best practices or a way of helping that child learn in a way that's going to help them become successful. Teachers have been experiencing and showing more anger, yelling at kids, telling them that they have to pass this test, teaching to the test. Now, these aren't bad people. These are teachers that are highly anxious because their livelihood, their ability to hold a job depends on a child in their classroom being able to pass a test.
The other portion of it that is very concerning is the amount of money that is coming in, not just from the federal government, but the amount of money that is coming from entities such as the Gates Foundation and other private organizations that have a lot of money to spend and to use to hold this up. And right now, education is the money bags. Education right now is where everyone is going to make their money, and it is through assessment, and it is through software and textbooks. And the unfortunate thing is, at the end of the day, we're going to be in the same boat we were in at the end of No Child Left Behind. It didn't work. Common Core won't work.
And the National Catholic Education Association took $150,000 from the Bill Gates Foundation to spread this into our Catholic schools. And our archdiocese have to know more, and they have to start listening to parents that are saying, we don't want this in our schools. And we are at a point with the parents where they don't know about Common Core. Parents don't know what this is. They are not paying attention because they think it's just public schools. But then when they think, oh, it might be in our Catholic schools, they kind of do la 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 la, I don't want to know.
And the states really, truly didn't have a say. They'll claim that we have had a say through our governor and through our state superintendent.
Common Core came in the dead of night. It skipped our legislature. It skipped the voters. It skipped the parents. But the cat's out of the bag. We know it doesn't work. We know it's not going to work. We know that there are better options for our children. And it's time for parents to get involved.
There was absolutely no empirical evidence to uphold that these standards were what they were claiming to be.